welcome back to World of Skimmer book series. Now, I haven't made a podcast in a few months. I've actually been tied up in a writing project. My next book is now with my publisher. I don't want to ruin the surprise for everyone. I spent a few months putting a non-fiction book together in the area of the phenomenon, so I'm not going to announce anything about that for a while yet. We'll let the review process take its course, and once I have an arrangement with my publisher, we will talk more about it and get the cover design finished and the editing done and a book format organised. So we'll talk about that soon, but I wanted to continue with the character series for my podcast, World of Skimmer, and so far we've been through a number of different characters in the novel series, and I wanted to talk today about Ying Yue, one of the characters central to how the plot unfolds in the series. Now she's of course a Chinese national and the chief science officer on board the mineral harvester owned by Globe Corp Mining, and she's the lead scientist involved in the AI and drone development program. She's very ambitious, so her family background was all tied up in the deep sea mining industry, of course. Her father's the chief operating officer of Globe Corp Mining and has very close associations with the CCP subcommittee that oversees the deep sea mining industry on behalf of China and the mineral harvester program. So she's how would you say she places research above all else. She's very obsessed and very focused on her research program as the lead scientist and science officer, and of course that's the mimic drone program. It's kind of her baby, and she's inherited the legacy program of that from her mother, and she's carried on with it and done wonders with developing it further. It's all part of the plot, so I don't want to go into too much detail about the mimic program and her involvement, but I do want to talk more about her as a character and a central character to the series, the 6-book series. As it unfolds, we learn that there is some sort of connection between her, or Ying Yue, and her work and what her mother was up to, and that somehow Sue, the protagonist Sue, is involved in all this. There seems to be some sort of family connection. We're never quite sure what that is. Towards the end of the series, we start to understand how and where and why Sue is involved, because her father, the chief operating officer of Globe Corp Mining, keeps Sue around even after trying or attempting to kill his daughter, and she's PLA Navy, of course. So there's something going on there that forces her father to keep this protagonist around. Now, Ying Yue's carrying on her mother's work, and we don't find out exactly what happened to her mother in the novel series. We know she's sick or gravely ill, and that becomes apparent as we move through the books in the series. We're never quite sure, or we don't quite find out what exactly happened for her to be so ill, but it has a big impact on the family dynamics between her brother Chang, who's one of the crew of the Skimmers, and her father as a very senior official in Globe Corp Mining and very close to the CCP subcommittee that oversees the operations. So in looking at Ying Yue in more detail, it's very hard to find where her loyalty lies. There's a number of different options here, but we're left suitably confused about where her loyalty lies and what her actual agenda is towards the end of the novel series. We can ask ourselves, when you read it, is her loyalty to her father, is her loyalty to the company itself, or is her loyalty solely to her research at the expense of everyone else, including her family? Now, there are some things that she gets up to or does in the novel series that points to any one of these things being the case, but we're left hanging as to what or where her loyalty lies until well towards the end of the series. Now we see as the series unfolds that Sue becomes a threat to her ambitions or whatever her agenda is, and the success of her project. Now whether Ying Yue is using Sue or subject to what Sue is up to, we're not quite sure. Ying Yue is very smart and of course is aware that there's some sort of connection there between Sue and her father, and she doesn't want to undermine that, but it appears that Ying Yue has her own agenda which unfolds during the plot across the novel series, but the reader can't quite figure it out. And when I wrote her as a character, I wanted to leave the reader suitably confused as to where her loyalty lies and what her ultimate agenda is, because that helps escalate the situation towards book 5 and 6 in the series. So is Ying Yue playing both sides? So is she tied up with Rick and the Academy and the Sea Hunters and their ambitions concerning the rise of AI and the rollout of retrofitted UFO technology? Or is she more up to something herself to further her own ambitions within Globe Corp Mining, not necessarily to prove herself to her father? She's not like Chang. She doesn't really have anything to prove in that regard, and she's not angry at her father like Chang is, but there is something there that niggles away at the reader as to whether she's got something going on, and there's going to be a confrontation between her father and her brother towards the end of the series about what she's really up to and how Sue is involved. So I leave the reader very much hanging in that regard until late in the book. So the family dynamics plays out in the background as the plot unfolds through the series between these Chinese nationals, her father, the COO of Globe Corp Mining, Ying Yue as the Chief Science Officer, and Chang, her sister, Chang, her brother, who's on a skimmer. And the dynamic carries us through the plot as everything else goes on around it, because I've made it so there's a number of subplots going through the series. Of course, there's a confrontation between two forms of AI, one the Chinese has and one the Academy has, and one is very much focused on more of a hive mind mentality. Now whether Ying Yue, it's difficult for us to discern if Ying Yue sees that as ultimately dangerous. I think as we get through the novel series and Sue gets hold of a skimmer and one of the spheres, and then combines that with the virus or hive mind developing on the harvester, that Ying Yue appears to become concerned about the impact of that on her research. Now whether she sees that as advantageous or not, we're not quite sure, because surrounding her chaos ensues and she gets caught up in all the dynamics that play out between the crew and Sue, the protagonist, who's trying to get hold of and get rid of the crew and take this technology to meet her own end game, which we think involves the PLA Navy. Now whether she's rogue or not, we're still not quite sure of. We become convinced by the end of the novel series that there must be an element of the PLA Navy that wants all this to happen. As to what purpose and what end, we find out in book 6. Of course, when I wrote book 6, I wanted to bring together a culmination of all these subplots that play out in the final scenes on the harvester, which brings the whole family situation together. Sue together, her dad, the Sea Hunters, the Academy, and everyone else's agenda culminates in this one climax at the end of 6 books in the series. So I'm not going to say too much about that. We want to carry on, probably just sum up Ying Yue. So Again, a very ambitious character, very much confused about where her loyalty lies. The reader is. We know there's some family history or family involvement with regard to Sue and what happened to her mother. That has an impact on the relationship Ying Yue has with her brother and her father, but above all that, she's very astute and strong-willed in terms of carrying on her mother's legacy, and her mother's gravely ill. I won't say what happens to her mother eventually in the series, but I'll leave that to the reader. So apart from that, that is Ying Yue and her involvement in the series. Now we still have a few characters to go, which I'm going to talk about in the next few podcasts. I want to talk about Jonah, a key character and the founder of the Academy and Skimmer crew program, and I want to talk about, probably leaving till near last, Sue, the protagonist, and how who she is as a character and how she's tied up in all this. And then some of the minor characters will probably group together in the final podcasts for World of Skimmer, and that's of course Max, Alex and Cam of the Sea Hunters, and Dr. Sign himself, the father of Ying Yue and Chang. And that'll wrap up all the main characters in the book series and bring to a close my podcast series on the characters. And then I want to launch into another short podcast series on the UFO technology that plays out in the background of this whole deep sea mining thriller, and how that's all connected, and how I came up with all the ideas and concepts to weave this subplot or theme through the book series about UFO acquired and retrofitted reverse engineered UFO technology. So I'll leave it for there. I hope that you enjoy the podcast and stay with us as we get into some of the more characters and run through the final number of podcasts in World of Skimmer series and characters in Skimmer, the book series. 6 books, book 4 coming out very, very soon, book 5 and 6 probably in 2025. So thanks for listening.